Good evening, and welcome to Nightfall in Amsterdam. Tonight we are joining the Peru of the city as the Sept of Riddling Waters holds a Sept moot called to discuss a rather wide variety of things. First and foremost, the ongoing conflict and the accusations that have been issued from the Sept of the Frozen Forest, as well as discuss the situations surrounding the members of these packs, what actions they've taken, uh, what the results of those actions were, was it beneficial, and how can they better coordinate in the future, or how can these packs potentially guide other packs to be successful. Kind of a what worked, what didn't type discussion. With that being said, we will start.
I'm ready.
Once again at the Sept heart, a swirling pool kind of set in the center of the marsh. Most of the Sept elders and other Sept residents are already present. Some of the kinfolk are there observing. Excuse me.
Yeah, Eric arrives, in the actually quite fanciful garb, nice clothes, looks like he actually dresses quite, there'll be the clan Oryx and sigil as well on the shirt. You can see the runic armor on him as well because he ain't going nowhere without armor. But yeah, looks pretty fucking good.
And of course, also attending, the newcomer to the Sept, Silverfang, known to some as Gerard. He's sat down, already taken a seat, arriving possibly a bit too fashionably early, but either way, he's there. And they calmly sat down in usual kind of slightly fancier common clothes that he's normally been wandering around in, but still nothing over the top, nothing really in your face kind of thing.
And it's a sin and a crime to miss a moot. So fuck it. Yeah, Grace trails in from yet another direction. Not dressed especially fancily. She's only made so many moots. She probably has taken a moment to root through her belongings and put a marking or two on her face. Uses a little bit of it's not out and out woad. We save that for war, but has taken a bit of paint and used it to put a couple marks on her forehead, maybe one down the bridge of her nose, just designations for the family, the tribe, and whatnot. But when she appears, will probably do so by since in theory everyone appears in a moot. Gosh darn it. Means there's a pretty good crowd going, so she gets close enough and kind of skitters her way up to one of the lower branches on one of the nearby trees, just perches herself there. Not drastically out of reach, just up where she's got a good view. She's short. Needs some vertical assistance.
Dominic shows up to the moot, coming from yet another direction, looking as if he has considerably calmed down, and just pretty much casually, and at we'll say at the bottom of the tree that Grace is perched, waiting for things to begin, hands folded.
Air casually strolls in from, hey, yet another direction. Um, and she's not dressed anything fancy, her typical flannel t-shirt, jeans, and boots, and she kind of starts just looking around, just find a space to stand and wait.
Lucas steps sideways, kind of right in the middle of where everyone's hanging out. Wearing his armor, has his sword strapped across his back and his guitar slung across his chest and are ready to play.
We're out of different directions for people to come from. Wander down the main path, and Colin will stand in the back wearing his jeans and a t-shirt. Just kind of cross his arms and wait.
All right. At that point, a dark furred kind of form stands up. Some of you may recognize her depending how well you've kind of gotten to know everybody. But the noticeable feature is she does not have a tail. And as she walks up to the center swirling pond here, she tilts her head back and leads the opening howl. Her howl starts fairly almost soft and low and seems to kind of rise up like a windstorm. As some of the other ones join in, it gets more aggressive and sort of thunderous to it. After she's finished the howl itself, she turns around and looks to everyone, and she says, "I call this moot officially open. As a war moot for the Sept of Riddling Waters." as it is the open, I turn over to anyone at this point who have specific issues before we enter into the calling of the spirits. Before we move to the cracking of the bone in these stories, this would be a concern of someone not present, concern of someone, an outsider present who should not be here. Time to make any assertions. If no boasts or claims need to be levied, we will. Excuse me. Turn it over to the welcome the spirits. She'll look around, not seeing anyone. She nods, and
So, pardon, just to make sure, it's basically bring forward any complaints and whatnot now.
no, they will have the cracking of the bone after the inner sky. This would be a, if you have a urgent concern, like, hey, there's someone not here who should be. Hey, we have someone missing. Hey, we have a interloper present, an outsider that we need to introduce, that sort of thing.
Eric will make his way forward in the big wolf-long cloak, and he just walks with a lot of fucking swagger and a lot of pride about him, and he'll nod to the respective person. I wish to speak.
They nod, and Sarah nods to you and says, very well. What is your assertion?
There is a member of this sept not present here. For it is indisposed, and it should be made aware of for all of the sept to know.
Is she? Go on.
He'll stand, roll his shoulders a bit. The Metis known as Rat, a Cleath of the Bonad tribe, and a Galliard. She has been indisposed by forces that we were unsure of, but we are almost certain that they are the enemy. This was done after she fled the field of battle, stating that she does not believe in the same cause as the Sept does in a time of war. It is important to note, for everyone here, that is who is missing. That. He pauses and looks around at all the faces, and lets out a breath. That who does not believe in you. I wanted to make sure everyone knows that and knows who abandoned them in the fight. It is my duty as an Arun. And I get a Fenris. He will respectfully bow and get back in line.
She nods and kind of looks over in the Truthcatcher Scarlet says the assertions, individual assertions, will be addressed and may be levied during the cracking of the bone. As far as her presence, we will assume at this point that she is potentially in need of rescue or has been otherwise incapacitated and thus is not present until we know for certain otherwise. Thank you for making sure the Sept is aware of such a missing member. At that point, another fellow walks forward. Some of you may recognize him. He nods, looks around the group and says, "They've been welcomed on this sept previously, given time and opportunity to learn what it is to be Guru. They have witnessed from a distance some of the acts of these potent packs. They're studied under the Den Father as a cub. But I have recently gained patronage and welcome into a tribe. So I am here to present myself accordingly. I have been dubbed by the Wendigo to be Scales the Abyss, the Untainted One. The tale of my journey here is perhaps one that can be shared today or at a more appropriate time. But the great Wendigo has asked me to make sure that the Sept was aware that he is present and that his tribe stands against those who would usurp and corrupt, as they always have. He kind of nods and steps back into the crowd. Not seeing anyone else, Sarah steps back and turns around, or turns over to excuse me. For the inner sky. There's a silver fang. He's clad in white robes. As he walks up, and he's got this strange wooden staff that even on the soft ground seems to almost tap. And he steps forth, looks up, and he says, "I am witnesses the fallen, burned by the dragon's blood, eyes of flame, the keeper of memories, speaker for the dead, and bringer of light. As master of the rites, I call forth our great totem, the sea dragon, Shiryu. I call upon Falcon, that the great spirit of my tribe stand with us. We welcome the Wendigo, announced by the first of his tribe to set foot on this sept. I invite the crescents of their own respective tribes to invite their own totems. And he kind of looks around. He's quiet for a minute, and he kind of just gestures to the crowd for any other crescent moons who wish to call upon their tribal totems. The first to do so is a rather blatantly Irish fellow, an elder, and he nods and he says, Emery calls the circle, and I call upon Stag to join us, to join his strength to the sea dragon and to empower this sept and his tribe within it. Petrus in the back, real low and guttural. Grandfather Thunder, come forth. Whip the seas into a stormy fury and give strength to the sea dragon. And I continue through the list with various crescents of the other tribes present, inviting their tribal totems.
Yeah, Air will step forward and call Fenris to join them as well.
All right. Petrus kind of gives you a nod at that.
Still kind of flash him a smile.
And with that, the race master turns back to the pool. Greetings, Sea Dragon. We hold this moot in honor of you, in honor of the Sept of Riddling Waters, which you have helped us build. And we give to you glory and strength. May you grant us wisdom. He nods and steps back and says, Sea Dragon is among us. The truth catcher steps past him with a nod. She says, I am judges the kings. Half Moon of the tribe of the Black Furies. And as Truth Catcher, I begin the cracking of the bone. And she actually picks up what looks to be a large animal bone and cracks it. And she says, at this point, we give the opportunity for any to air grievance, any to address policy upon the sept, whether that be to question or propose change. And we will give the floor to discuss how those have conducted themselves among the sept. She looks at Eric and she says, I believe you mentioned some initial charges.
Oh, step forward again. I did, and I have an additional proposal for something concerning the war effort, but to my original charge, yes. The Metis fled the field of battle. She abandoned us in our hour of need, and I, being in a rune, and another one of us, Bosco, of the Silver Fangs, did our guiding duty and took. And you'll unbuckle the cloak so it falls off, and then like lift up the shirt, the big, huge, battle scar. I did my guiding duty and stood where she could not, the same as Bosco, the same as all who came with me, and I see many of them here now. We did it. We brought victory. And she questioned that with her cowardice when she fled. And then, rebuckle the cloak back on.
She nods and says, I've heard a similar tale from Bosco. Is there anyone else here who can collaborate this tale as well?
Dominic will stand up from his perch. I thought. Oh, so go ahead, sir.
She looks at you.
That was my first meeting with my now alpha. We stood Fang and Claw as we fought together. She quit the field. I cut down my brothers. I cut down the people that I lived with, that I fought with, all on the bidding of Falcon. Why did she flee? I put my faith in each of you, but she couldn't do the same. What my alpha says is true.
She looks and says, is there anyone else who can collaborate with this?
Air will step forward and all of us present fought the enemy bravely, except for she who fled.
We do not have her present that we can question her means or motives. But we do have a number of claims that validate one another. She looks at Aaron and says, "You are the beta of her pack, are you not?"
Repeat that. You broke up, John.
She looks at you and says, "You are the beta of the pack, are you not?"
Yes.
Holly, are you having trouble with breaking up again?
Yes, I am.
You want to drop and see if it...
I heard of what you're saying. Everybody else is fine, though.
Strange.
But being as am I better now? Thank you, Katie. I see that.
Yes, much better.
Can you
Yeah.
guys hear me better now, though?
Yeah, it seems better to me coming through to me. Am I coming better on your end?
Okay. Katie posted the question so I can see it. So Air will say, yes, I am.
And you were present, and yet still she fled.
She made sure to flee when battle started when we were all already occupied. But yes, I was present.
Lucas stands next to Air, but doesn't say anything unless anyone looks at him to say something.
She kind of nods. Well, it seems that it is, would be hard pressed to dispute the claim, nor would she be able to give valid reason. There are very few acceptable reasons to flee battle while your pack and allies fight and potentially die.
Oh, Mayra.
He turns and looks at you.
She'll actually hop down so that she's not being disrespectful by being higher than a greater ranking Gru. So she does a little bit of a plop to her feet. That Menace not only quit the field, but that Menace never entered the field. When all of us were preparing, it took a defensive stance, backing away as though it had no faith in the fight. Even though Many of its pack, don't know if all, but many of its pack were on the field itself. That one there. She actually points out, Lucas, that one actually caught our flank. But the other didn't so much as bloody her blade before she fled. Pardon, it. Player have it. It knew that we were on enemy territory, knew what we were there to do. Perhaps things got a little bloodier a little faster than it might have expected, but it's no excuse to fall back when we are Gaia's teeth and claws. Are we not, Raya?
She nods and says, yes, it was deemed an enemy sept. War was officially declared at our previous moot. Seems to me that there is no acceptable reason.
None at all.
Yeah, she just offers a proper little bow. Thank you.
Colin will step forward and
I
he'll
would like to add that we did try to discuss it with her, and she was a no-show when Veronica, myself, and even Bosco tried to discuss it with her. We have not seen her since the battle either.
I see. Well, then, until further explanation can be given, and until all details can be determined, or until such time as future actions render this judgment irrelevant, I, as the truth catcher of the sept and with the blessing of Sea Dragon, declare her to be an outsider. She is not welcome on this sept without escort. Should she be brought here, she will be brought before myself or the Alpha, at which point further decisions can commence. Should any encounter her outside the sept, recognize that she is an outsider. Treat her with the respect of another child of Gaia, but recognize that she is a potential threat. She turns to the Rites Master and says, I would also request Rites Master that you commune with the spirits on whether she warrants to be ranked as a Cleath, or if it would be more appropriate that she be a cub when and if she returns, as it seems she lacks some fundamentals of what it means to be Guru. And the Rice Master just kind of nods, and Truthcatcher looks back to Aaron, to Eric, and she says, "Is the Beta who is responsible for this Guru at the time of the offense, and is the Guru leveling the charge? Do either of you find any objection with these judgments?"
There is no objection here, Raya.
No objection.
I have no objection, but I do have a question, right?
She nods.
The nature of the Sept and the Borders is somewhat strange to me, but if she is an outsider, would she still be able to lead others into this place? Should she have further... Place all the shoes with it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get the really inappropriate habit, but I'm failing. Would it be able to lead others still past the borders? Because that constitutes still a pretty strong threat, considering we have enemies beyond. And if it no longer calls this place home, why should it protect it?
She looks to the actually to another wolf, still in Lupus, who steps forward and shifts and says, "I am Tens the Grove, son of Stag and the keeper of the land." As part
Jake
of
goes up so fast.
tending the sept here, I can tell you that the sea dragon shrouds the spawn itself. Riddles and mysteries are its territory. Should she or any outsider approach this bond, they'll find themselves wandering in an empty swamp.
Thank you, Raya. Stand by. Have no objection.
She nods and thanks this keeper of the land, who takes his place again as a Lupus, patiently waiting. And then she says, "You said you had additional proposals."
He'll nod. He'll step forward and walk around examining everybody. We are at war. My pack has been patrolling the Sept and taking the initiative to do so. We are not strapped and we are not unable to cover the Sept ground. However, there is more and more pressing concerns. We will need additional people to patrol the Sept, but also the kin themselves. We all know what has happened to them. We all know what is going on. I propose that the kin be trained in martial prowess. Blades, guns, whoever finds the time to teach them, teach them. We are not looking to send the kinfolk in combat, no. That is our role. But to teach the kin to defend themselves, to have the ability to even perhaps escape and warn others, and to give them the sense of security. I fear if we do not, they will begin to doubt, and they will begin to doubt themselves, and that we cannot afford in a time where they are so vulnerable.
Here's will actually back that up with a whoop of agreement.
She nods and says, "There's some validity to this claim."
Lucas says if it's
My
the
Mhm.
Lucas says if it's the will of the elders to do this, then I will volunteer time to train the kin.
She nods and says, "That's something we may have to take into consideration."
I would suggest that trainers be chosen based on their rank, their deeds, their prowess, their specific style. Runes can train many other things, or a Ragabash can train another 10,000, the same as a Theurge, the same as any auspice. I propose one trainer for each auspice and from different tribes to represent the different tribal fighting styles as well. That way, each tribe does their part. And each auspice gives their role. No matter the breed. You look at the Lupus, the Metis, the Hamid.
There's something we should take into consideration in the short term, however. I think it's best if we defer to those most familiar with fighting in human or closely hominid forms. I'll put this forth to our guardian, touches the wind, the Coelacanth Connor. And he kind of nods and says, "They'll certainly be looking to discuss details with you, Mr. Ulrichsen. I think there's
Just nod.
merit to your plan, and we could perhaps roll something out, but short term, sometimes it's easier to get started small than to try and build the whole thing at once."
You give a respectful nod.
Dominic will speak up if he's allowed to.
Yeah?
Let it be known that I, Dominic Frost, Arun, Hamid to the nation, Khalif to the nation, born on two legs, child of Falcon, humbly offer my services to help train the kin. I support my outfit always.
As Dominic finishes off his reel, Gerard stands up, an unknown face to many in the sept still, but he stands with a certain gesture of pride. And I, Dominic? Gerard von Brandt, born upon two legs to house gleaming eye, as a galliard, the Silver Fang tribe. I honor this, the passing of knowledge to ones who need it. I offer my blade.
Connor nods as well, and he says, "Well, it seems like we've got a couple people lining up to help. I'm sure we'll put something together." I know Vano's been working on some options for weapons for the kin. Of course, the mortal laws limit us somewhat.
Yeah, Eric will step back into line.
Connor seems to be over. He's kind of got a notepad out and seems to be taking some notes on thoughts and stuff.
And actually, Grace will, the next time they look up, will make a bit of a gesture, kind of a by your leave.
Okay. And Scarlett's kind of looking to the crowd to see who's, if anyone else, who's next, that sort of thing.
Would this be the time for like formal introductions, or should I wait a little bit later?
Probably the best time would be like the stories and songs, which
Fair
would be next up.
Yeah, Grace will make a little gesture when they look around. I'm more than willing, Raya, to aid in teaching any of the kin fairly close knife fighting, but I have another concern that I'd like to broach. As not all the kin even regularly visit the sept, and there may be some who don't even know of it. Is there a standard process for keeping them safe, for looking over them, for educating them?
She looks and says, well, the kin we are aware of are all present on the sept. That's not to say that there aren't those in the city that exist, but we for those that we do know of, we have made dedicated and concerted efforts to ensure that they are either here or in protected facilities, properties that are owned or managed by the Hamids of our sept.
And for those who have things like jobs that they cannot be caged away in a safe house for a long period of time, are there spirits that are used? Are there tailings that are given? Things that would cue us if they needed help?
I believe we have some spirits that are involved. I don't know the full extent of that process.
At that point, Dominic kind of gets in close, and it looks like his eyes are kind of transfixed on Grace, almost as if he's looking through her.
Same with Eric.
Like before, it was just like this eagerness to like help, but now it's to put in perspective. He's not trying to hide it. It's like an overprotective brother. It's like we already talked about this. We all got angry about this. Fuck you up to. So yeah, he's in close. It's almost as if he stopped breathing.
Yeah, she just politely nods and says if there's a proper official to talk to, I'd love to know who it is so that I can do so. That's all I ask, right?
He nods and says, we'll see who the best point of contact would be for that.
Colin will step forward. I can offer my bar as a safe refuge, and I can offer my time and expertise to make some talons to assist our kin.
There's a nod of deep appreciation.
If I can make a recommendation, Raya.
She just kind of looks at you.
My recommendation would be that every precaution would be used, and that there would either be a Philodox present or someone of rank to either perform sense worm or any other of our ways to identify those that have been touched by the worm. I'm all for, and I fully accept the burden that kinfolk bear, but that doesn't mean that the enemy would not use our fondness and our devotion towards them to aid, to strike a blow at us, as well meaning as we may be. I will go so far as to even suggest that a person would be not of the same pack, so there's an unbiased opinion.
An interesting thought, certainly. The most prominent concern being that not all our enemies are of the worm.
Not even if they're attractive, Raya.
Whew.
The stare.
At me. He looks directly at you.
There's so much stare going on. There's like anime static.
I know. I gotta get the appropriate picture for this baby. Here's that. Let me just get it. Yeah.
I love you, Katie.
I love you too.
She says, looks around again and says, you do make a point that eliminating the possibility of worm threats would at least narrow down or reduce the number of potential threats. Yes, we can't catch them all, but such techniques would help. Is there any other complaints, allegations, any grievances, concerns of policy, concerns of personal conduct?
Grace takes a minute, regaining her composure after making the huffiest of stares, the longest and huffiest of static, flicking stares at Dominic. Pulls her shit together for a minute. It's like, in with the good air, out with the bad air. I'm not mad. Everything's fine. putting a frog under your pillow later, but everything's fine.
It's fine.
But
Handle it.
but when she, catches herself up a little bit, she finally does take a step in again, because she's got all kinds of things to say tonight, apparently. Like to propose, Rhea, that perhaps some greater care be taken in the teaching of those that come to the sept. It seems that at the very least, two of your number don't know their auspice so well. Or, I suppose, one of your number now.
I'll take that point of rage.
She actually gestures towards Lucas. Seen an awful lot of Guru trying to do my job for me. Don't really appreciate it, but do say so myself.
She turns and says, "So you feel that this Galliard has been acting the role of the Ragabash?" And I assume you have examples or situations to support this claim?
Hmm. Man, this flow, though. Okay. Naduraya? I've been brought up in a way that's appropriate to my tribe. And it is no secret that I don't have much love for the Metis. I appreciate they're doing their work. Of course, they have their duty, just as the rest of us do. But I have never seen such flirtation even from the kinfolk the way I see the mock flirtation out of that Metis. I don't know whether it's that one or another member of its pack stirring it on that brings on all the teasing about how interested I must be. But I've never felt so much like I was surrounded by a pack of Ragabash in my life. I've had my own belongings dangled before me. Been teased over getting them back. For all rightful territory is a matter of the litany. The worst part is it wasn't even just that one alone. The other, when called into question on its behavior, likewise thought it would make a couple good few jokes or try to make a little question in point or two.
She looks back and forth and says, "Well, it seems to me there's a second allegation in there. But you feel this one is attempting to mate with yours, at least in jest, made those suggestions."
Eric will lift up his hand, if I may, Raya.
She turns and says, "I assume this interruption will provide pertinent details."
As per her alpha, yes. And considering what I'm about to bring, yes.
She nods and says, very well.
Step forward. Grace has come to me with this trouble before this moot, as her alpha, and came to many things the Metis had done. I was present for the dangling of valuables before her. However, an agreement was reached between myself and his alpha. We met in under hospitality, and we agreed, and we were a kind of gesture. An honorable accord was given between the two of us. The issues regarding his flirtation and all that is entirely a separate issue, but in terms of possessions, in terms of his behavior in that regard, was settled between myself and his alpha, as per tradition dictates. I just thought you would like to know that fact, and for his pack to understand that this is not a violation of what we agreed. I'm an honorable man and I keep my promises. He just gives a respectful nod and steps back in line.
She kind of looks at Eric as if kind of thinking about that. Then she looks over at Lucas and says, I presume you have something you wish to say for yourself?
So he's clearly flustered. Did I find a possession that was hers somewhere, specifically at Colin's bar? Yeah. Did I tease her with it a little bit? Yeah, that happened. But it wasn't out of malice. It wasn't out of me trying to do the duties of some other auspice. I was just trying to play around a bit. Clearly that fell flat. So, I mean, you guys do what you got to do. With all respect.
I'll put it out there that especially after Eric steps forward and says his bit, Grace, kind of has visibly taken it down a notch since. She's gotten a little more sedate. She looked pretty jazzed up when she initially did it.
Yeah. The truth catcher looks again between the two of you and says, it sounds to me as if at least the initial disagreement was sorted by the alphas of your packs, which I respect. It sounds as if, whether it was intention or not, he was indeed acting the role of the Ragabash, the trickster. I do not believe there is any intent, however, to attempt to break the litany or mate, more so that was, again, acting more the trickster than perhaps would be appropriate. I think at this point the most prominent concern then is that. As such, she turns and she says, "I'm assigning you, Lucas, to an apprenticeship that for no less than 3 months you will study under the tail singer, or Gilliard sings with foxfires. I suspect as well, given she is well known to be a member of the Valkyria, that if there is any untoward attempts at crash mating jokes, she will promptly correct them. It's possible as well that she can help you hone your craft. She's an accomplished skald herself."
As you wish. I'm honored to study under her.
The exact expectations of this apprenticeship will be worked out between you and her, that it does not interfere with your responsibilities to your pack nor hers in her role on the sept. Then she'll look at Grace. "Did you have any additional recompense you felt entitled to?"
I'm gonna say there's a moment where she's essentially listening keenly to the link, because it's one of those like, if you're gonna tell me to say no, you better do it right meow.
No, Eric goes, leave it. What's done is done.
So yeah, there's kind of a listening expression for about half a moment before she shakes her head and just, again, it's so carefully composed. Goes, Nore.
And then she looks and she says, "I'd remind those as well that this is a important example of the Ragabash and the side that is often forgot. There's also their place to challenge and question how things are done. Many look upon them as tricksters and jokesters and forget that it's also their place to call into account when things seem out of line. We must make sure not to lose respect for those among us who fulfill a different role.
Just a very polite bow of the head and acknowledgement. Acceptance and whatnot.
She'll turn. Are there any other grievances? Are there any other concerns on policy? Or any other matters of personal conduct? After looking around for a minute, giving anyone else a chance to speak who might wish to, she nods and says, "Very well then. If that is the case, then I will turn it over to the tale singer, that she might present stories she feels relevant, and invite others to share theirs as well."
Dominic will motion to try to get someone's attention so he can speak or step forward.
As the tale singer steps forward, she kind of gestures to you.
Dominic will take center stage and lock eyes with Gerard. I just want to make a formal welcome for my brother in arms, one of Hell's Eye, the one from his notable line, and a fellow warrior who roots out heresy where he sees it. His dedication firm, and his pride in Falcon's eyes I see. So in front of everyone, I say welcome.
I was muted. And as the spotlight somewhat is pointed towards him, Gerard will actually stand. Again, that resonating, powerful figure. The head held high, of course, as Dominic finishes. He gives a deep nod, and there's almost a hint of a smile towards him. And I thank you, Dominic, for your warm welcome towards this sept. And I look forward to standing in battle, in bloodshed, with all of you, side by side, each one of us, as Gaia, the holy Gaia, commands us, as our elders guide us, as our honor shield us, and they will fear our name, for it is vengeance. Victory needs no explanation. Defeat allows none. Let none survive. And he takes a knee towards the tail singer.
She nods and says, "May this be a formal welcome to the sept. An invitation to stand with us, to dine with us,
I thank you, Raya, for your warm welcome and hospitality alike.
She nods again and says, "Tonight, would share a tale, an unpleasant one, from my own tribe. She looks around and she says, "This is a tale that brings much stress and shame to my tribe. It's also a tale of deception, of trickery, this is a tale of how a usurper took the name Odin, broke the ancestral tribal cairn of my tribe, slew the mate of Fenris, and twisted the ancestral faith. She turns and looks and says, "The name Odin is not unknown even among my tribe, but more so among mortals. Mortals call him a god. Once my tribe saw him as a great spirit. Then came dark times, the wars. When one we knew as Loki, who became known as Loki Falsesayer, came to our ancestral home, told us how the Jotun planned to assault us, how they sought to strike at the heart of Heimhalla. And if we wanted to protect ourselves, we must act first. And took up arms we did. Marching to what we thought would be a great victory. To their own umbral home we strode, confident in our ability to win. Glorious battles against the Jotun, and we struck them down, driving them deeper into their own realm, just as we had driven them into the Umbra in the past. And then, deep in their realm, our warriors stopped coming. Reinforcements didn't arrive, and we were forced to fall back further and further. And as we retreated back into Heimhalla, we thought certain that the Jotun must have slipped past us, for the dead lay strewn throughout the sept, the cairn awash in the blood of the Fenrir. But not Loki, not the false sayer. He stood whole and healthy with his great ally, the one who called himself Odin. As Odin, he brought forth ravens. He raised up the dead, even our own dead. And though he stunk of death, we could smell too the lineage upon him. Twisted by the worm, his kinfolk had become a leech. And this leech had taken the name of one of our greatest spirits and defiled it. He slew our greatest leaders, destroyed our great cairn. It wasn't until our own elders sacrificed their own lives to bring Fenrir himself into this world that Odin was struck down. Many think it was perhaps the Great Spirit himself corrupted. But the worst shame, one that has been buried even among our own tribe until recently uncovered, is that this was not the Great Spirit twisted by the worm. This was one of our own, a kin of Fenrir and his own guru brother, who in a bid for power and a jealous of the leaders of the tribe, and knowing that this warped one would not be tolerated, decided to lash out first. What is worse is that we let a great spirit become shamed, our own tribe forsaking him, simply to protect our own vanity. And she looks up, gives this real stern look, and she says, and there are those among my tribe that will hold to this belief until Ragnarok. But the elders of this sept, the Get of this region, have decided it's time to announce the truth. We will recognize Odin, though he is not our great spirit, he is a great spirit. We will recognize the Loki, the spirit, though he is not our spirit. We will grant them the homage they deserve, though Fenrir remains our father, the greatest among us. And should we find those usurpers, the disciples of the usurper Odin, we'll make sure their dead blood runs again. She nods and she says, I invite at this time anyone who has tales appropriate to share, that they do so.
Lucas steps forward. I'd like to tell the tale of the battle at the frozen forest.
She nods.
And I need to roll something. All right. Holy crap. Well, he does a really, really shitty job of it.
You just botched on a 9-dice pool.
Yeah. He's having a bad day. What happens when you botch on a storytelling?
You mangled the story. So I imagine pretty much everyone else who is at that fight is currently looking at Lucas, because he's basically highlighted the flaws of every guru's performance and not given focus to their accomplishments.
I'll take that point of rage.
Yep, same. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and the tail singer actually is looking at the truth catcher and then looks back at you and back at the truth catcher.
Shame pops out on Dominic's forehead.
Oh, Eric is like, you can hear the fucking God of War music starting to play. He's just fucking staring.
In a situation like that, would Lucas know that he
Yeah,
really fucked it up?
Eric has
Or
a
was it
death
just
glare
kind
right
of
now.
like he thought he did a good job and now everybody's pissed off at him?
Being it's a
like
botch, he probably thinks he did a good job, and everyone else is like, "Why did you focus
Overreacting.
on that point?"
Oh
Okay.
no.
But the master of the howl actually comes out. You recall from the opening of the moot that she is also a medicine to Galliard, and she raises her voice and she says, the hardest part of a glorious battle is not surviving it, but conveying the glory and challenge to those who are not there. To inspire the sense of awe and accomplishment in those who have never partaken in that. But to attempt to share that lesson to attempt to instill those emotions into an entire sept takes its own form of bravery. And the hardest part is failing and not even realizing it. To bring attention back to the wisdom of our truth catcher, who suggested this one apprentice under our skilled tale singer. And I would ask that we recognize the wisdom in our new moon in pointing out this opportunity for this one to learn and refine his skills and better embrace his own auspice.
Dominic will step forward.
She kind of nods, and as she steps back, she kind of draws Lucas with her out of the spotlight a little bit.
Looking at Gerard, perhaps with a more seasoned galleon with some epic stories of Silverfang prowess, would like to beguile us with a tale. Stoke the fires, brother.
And Gerard stands once again, begins walking towards the middle, and he doesn't stand still when he's doing this. He starts to pace from left to right. Now I say to you, Sept of the Riddling Waters, I am but just a Cleith to the Silverfang tribe under House Gleaming Eye. But I have learned, and I have watched throughout my cubhood. And that I bring to you a tale of my family. For those who do not recognize the brand of Von Brandt, each of us bear the burn as a mark of our loyalty, as a mark of our purity towards Gaia and to our servitude and our honor to the great Falcon. I bring you a tale of my mother. Natalia von Brandt, known to the nation as the Branding Flame. She too was a galliard, fervent in battle. I, seeing her, like many of you looking upon me now, expecting but she would lead. She would lead all, no matter the tribe, Fenrir, Fianna, Silverfang had Bone Gnawer and Glasswalker all alike. She would rile them up. And take them into battle, all side by side. Each fighting as a secure unit. Unity is what I pray to you now. This sept is at war. Our enemy broods over those hills. So he points off to the direction of the other sept. They are waiting, they are planning. And only together, as Gaia's tooth and claw will we truly bring down this beast. Put these heretics within their place. And under our elders, our galliards, our Haruns, our Ragabash, our Theurges, we will bring them down to truly show what they have fallen.
And she almost seems a little, given the last performance, a little almost taken aback. Such polar opposites. Finally looking around, and you actually see the rights master kind of nodding, with respect to that. She says, "Are there any other stories that wish to try to follow that one?"
Eric steps forward. I may not be a Galliard, but I feel, in terms of rallying the people, this tale of mine will be something to humanize the fight for all of us. We kind of wait for the tale singer's permission, essentially, because he's like, I'm going to run another Galliard, man. This is unfamiliar territory to me.
She gives you the go-ahead.
He'll crack his knuckles and crack his neck. I am a member of Clan Ulrichson of Sept of the Bloodfist. I was a kinfolk there for many years. My father was a Galliard, a noble man. He taught me many things of what we were, both as Gaians, Fenrir, to Silverfangs, to Black Furies, to Fianna. We were close, as I was his only son. The day came when I was changed and eventually earned my way to becoming a Fenrir. There was pride, there was joy, but he took me aside and knelt me down and told me that we are the Gaians we choose to be, not those who have been. And it's up to us, the decisions we make, that steer the future of the nation and of Gaia's will. I didn't understand the words at the time, what fresh Cleus would, hopped up in his own self-belief, we'll put it. And so I set about my duties, and I noticed the Magnusons always coming to the point of conflict, always bearing insult, always bearing fang. My father never raised a hand to them, never raised a word, whereas I, being a hot-tempered young Arun, was always ready to fight, always ready to engage, defend my honor, defend my father's honor for him. Never he raised a hand, for he said that we all must work together in order to truly defeat the worm and reunite what has been lost to all of us. And then came a day when I went out to patrol and do my Arun duties. And I came back My father lay in his bed, and his throat ripped open with a silver knife. My mother lay wailing, and the sept stood in shock. But all but the Magnussons, they had left the very day of my father's death. And so, as I stared into the funeral pyre, there was no tears. There was no sadness. For we all know that death comes to us all as grew, one way or another. And I took this necklace, show the little necklace of a skull eating the moon. And my mother kept the one of his brother Hati as a promise that I would hunt down who murdered my father. And so I came here. And on the battlefield of the frozen forest, I saw him, covered in blood of my fellow tribal brothers with Silverfang's Fianna, and my cousin at my side. I screamed as loud as the heavens could scream for the traitor to turn and face me. I knew that part of me would die, but I thought if I could die on my feet, that my father would be proud. And when I felt the silver going in, I could hear them calling. I could hear everything calling me. But then I heard a howl deep from my body to tell me to get back up, to keep fighting, that I was not finished. And while I would not take sole credit for finishing that man, I could not, for it would dishonor the brave deeds that were done by Grace, done by Dominic, done by Bosco, done by Eyre, done by Lucas himself, done by Veronica, done by all those who stood and fought. I drove that blade through his throat. And as I sat up on the hill of the sept, pondering, I finally realized my father's words. We choose who we are and choose what we follow. That is what the totems teach us. Choice. The same way as they have chosen war, and we have chosen to defend it. You will take a step back into the crowd?
And as Eric finishes that story, there's a resonating low howl from Gerard.
There's others among the sept echo it, not necessarily full tilt, but
Oh yeah, Grace will do the same thing. echo along, whooping and hollering. And admittedly, as other people pick it up, she'll finally start shifting through the crowd a little bit, like picking her way along till she gets settled up roughly on Eric's right again.
And she nods and says to the sept, "We have heard tonight ancient tales whose challenges are echoed in our own. We have heard tales of valor and glory of some of our own Guru here at the Sept of Riddling Waters. We have heard tales of why this fight is personal, of the first-hand accounts of what has been done. And we are reminded by that in these rivalries, this infighting, our enemy may not always be of the worm. But if they help tear down the nation, if they help divide the tribes and weaken these ancestral clans, they are helping the worm. We've welcomed, for the first time, Wendigo. In an odd twist, we have almost as many of Falcon's children here as the Frozen Forest has. Many of them have their own ancestral bloodlines. We turn it over now to the wormfoe, that he might bring resolution to this moot. And this fairly burly Russian fellow comes out. And he's cloaked in, he's actually got a white fur coat. And you can see it's covered in black spirals. He's carrying a number of weapons, mostly blades. He drives one of the spears into the ground and hangs his coat on it. And he says, "I am Kulik Roma Mikolov. I'm the lone wolf. I come from the often ignored and more often shunned tribe of the Sibarak, born under the full moon in the frigid wastelands of the far north, on two legs. I come forth that we call the revel, but tonight, to honor our guest brethren, do not make these simple challenges of strength. Do not make them simple mock battles to give you something to boast about tomorrow. I call upon the Guru of the Sept challenge one another, fight one another. Let us engage, as the ancestral stories say the Gets spirits do. True tests of strength, where winner and loser both bear scars. And where in the morning it is not about the boast. It is not about who was the better warrior. It was about all becoming better warriors. This Cold War conflict is running out. There will be battle, bloodshed. We don't know what allies the frozen forest has. So tonight, as part of the revel, I call upon us. Embrace every aspect of the fight. We will prevail because we will be better. And with that, he shifts into his lupus, kind of a grayish silvery, and he lets out a crystal clear, cold howl, and it just echoes. With that, the master of howl gives signal as well, joining howls with him, and the guru around you begin to shift into lupus. As they do, the wormfoe takes off towards the edge of the bond. The rest of the guru in tow in lupus. And the alpha, who hadn't spoken up until this point, stands at the pool. And he kind of gives a nod to everyone before he too shifts and takes off. I guess for ease of sanity, is anyone not going to join in the revel?
Actually, I don't think Dominic is. He's full of too much. Yeah, I don't think so.
Eric won't.
Okay. All right, well, for everyone who does not, you guys are welcome to narrate what you're going to do. For everyone who does participate, we will assume you shift into lupus. Basically, it's run a lap around the bond, make sure there's anything that shouldn't be there gets killed. And then a lot of times it turns into just test or strength type thing. In this case, it was the Wormfoid invited everyone to make it true challenge and make it actual sparring matches.
Colin will go get his ass kicked.
Did I hear that correctly? Colin goes and gets his ass kicked.
Yep. Almost indefinitely.
All right. All right. Is there anything else anyone else wants to do? Otherwise, we'll assume that you guys just engage in aggressive revelry. Those who do not.
Yes.
Just to narrate someone who didn't go in, Eric will watch all the people go fucking buck wild and challenge each other. He just watches, but like this Pac-Man to feel that the rage is there. He's just saving it for the battlefield against the enemy, and he just nods to himself and just will walk off, keeping that Fenrir reserve.
Dominic will notice people joining in the revelry, and there's a brief look of uncomfortableness, but it's quickly dropped, and he sort of just about face and walks off in another direction. He's uncharacteristically stiff. Assume that he's probably just going on patrol. Clear his head.
Alrighty. So basically, you guys are going to kind of just go run your own route and try and avoid the revelry, not get caught up in it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Anything else from anyone before I wrap it up? Good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that will wrap up our moot for the Sept of the Riddling Water. This has been another werewolf scene for Nightfall in Amsterdam. Thank you, players, for playing, and watchers for watching.